magnetic, main, attention, fellow car enthusiasts, it looks such as the car we've been demanding has finally arrived. It's a rear-wheel drive performance sedan, with optional all-wheel drive on your rust belters. It has a suspension built to prioritize handling, the creation of which was overseen by an ex-BM staffer, and not simply any ex-staffer, though the former head on the AM division. It's additionally a luxury car, mature enough how the world won't accuse you of obtaining a midlife crisis, lavish enough that the friends won't think you've hit the skids, and subtle enough never to threaten the delicate balance of office politics. It's a sedan having a reasonably sized back seat and trunk, which means that your significant other can't veto it on such basis as impracticality. Most importantly, you may get it that has a manual transmission. That's finished. For which we've all been clamoring, right? This car could be the 2019 Genesis G70, the revolutionary entry-level model for Hyundai Group's new luxury division. The G70 is often a distant relative on the deservedly praised Kia Stinger. The bed's base architecture is shared, plus the powertrains are basically identical, although G70 is shorter within length and wheelbase and slightly lighter. The Hyundai Group engineers on location at the press preview were not wanting to discuss the differences between two. Several told us they'd been instructed through the PR folks to simply talk about Genesis, but I could glean that this G70 is meant to use a more performance-oriented tune as opposed to Stinger, which surprised me. More on that inside a bit. The Genesis folks whisked us towards the rocky seaside of Maine for your press preview, where they spent much time extolling the benefits of the two Genesis brands' cachet along with the G70's performance. I'll read the former: lots of multi-million-dollar multimedia faff designed to build a reputation where none exists, and focus on the latter. To me, it had been the drive that mattered, and that of a drive it had been, with the curvy back roads on the Club Motorsports track in Tamworth, NH. For those unfamiliar, the Club Motorsports circuit might be more of a ride than a track. Built around the side of any hill by someone that clearly considered racing drivers as expendable, it offers steep grades that put strong demands on engines and brakes. The mix of sharp and broad curves rewards a fantastic line as well as a steady rhythm, but blind crests and limit sidelanes make it easy for your amateur that will be me to reduce the line, the rhythm, and also the car before you. It's a deceptively challenging track, plus the G70's we flogged acquitted themselves well. We thrashed both rear and all-wheel drive versions from the G70. All powered through the 365 horsepower 3.3-liter twin-turbo V6 we visit, know and love within the Kia Stinger GT. Genesis claims a 4.5-second 060 time for rear-drive models, and although the club's steep hills taxed the V6 to its max, it ran like its backside was burning on the level front straightaway. The 8-speed automatic did a fantastic job of picking gears, and I never felt the necessity to reach with the standard fit paddle shifters. The rear-drive cars featured the Sport package with Michelin Pilot Sport 4 summer tires, and I was amazed at how early they started howling, seemingly once I turned the wheel from straight ahead, but they did deliver good grip and linear, or even super sharp, steering response. I was amazed at how much one's body rolled, but once the automobile took a set in side corners, it seemed content to support it. The brakes did an heroic job, no mean feat due to the downhill path and too many with the corners, even though the pedal was going soft and all on the cars I sampled, they each delivered smooth and consistent braking action. The rear-drive G70 felt stable and neutral. Though with a few ham-fisting from the steering wheel and accelerator I could goad it in a little power and oversteer. The AWD version felt remarkably similar, without worrying about power and oversteer bit, but what's more, it lacked the rear driver's potential to deal with understeer, which surprised me as the cars had the limited-run dynamic package with stiffer springs and Pilot Sport 4S rubber. Genesis told us by purchasing Escape fully off, AWD models will direct the majority of their power for the rear wheels to permit proper drifting, though there we were exhorted not try this out around the track. While the track drive proved a place, it had been out for the open road, a location where the Genesis G70 proved itself. I started my day having a 3.3 TThe AWD model loaded on top of Sport, Elite, and Prestige packages. I don't think I'll ever tire of Hyundai's twin-turbo V6, which packs a meaty punch and makes nice noises electronically enhanced inside Sport models. I was told the sounds broadcast throughout the speakers depend on a test mule with the exhaust that didn't meet mandated noise restrictions. Sport models employ a launch mode that revs the engine to a number exceeding 2,500 RPM, the velocity at which the turbos begin to do their thing. Launches were fun, but it absolutely was the broad torque curve that truly impressed me. V6-powered Sport models use a stiffer suspension tune than other G70s, and also the ride was obviously a little way too hard for my liking, not miserable, mind you, but firmer than I'd like for day-to-day driving. There was also a lot of thumping through the suspension, though I didn't hear this in other G70s I sampled. Next, I switched to some rear-drive G70 while using 2.0-liter turbo engine and 8-speed automatic transmission. This car also had the luxury-oriented Elite and Prestige packages as well as the dynamic package, that has the Sport's Michelin summer tires and limited slip diff coupled with slightly softer springs and non-adjustable shocks. I liked this setup greater. The ride was firm and communicative, although not as rough because the V6 Sport, and I didn't miss the adaptive dampers. Four-cylinder cars receive a different version in the rack-mounted steering box, and I preferred its lighter heft and the V6's heavier steering feel. What in the turbocharged four-cylinder engine? It's somewhat hard to come down in the rush on the twin-turbo 6, but I still liked a few. Its 252 horsepower and 260 lb-ft of torque is on par while using competition, though the G70's reduced turbo lag and linear power delivery sets it apart. It reminded me in the new Honda Accord's 2.0T, the initial such engine that I think truly works better as opposed to V6 it replaces. The G70's 2.0T would be the second. For the grand finale, I arranged to waste a few hours wandering the New England countryside having a manual transmission-equipped G70. Hyundai doesn't give you a stick with their high-end luxury trims, but manual cars understand the Brembo breaks through the Sport package. This transmission is everything a stick-shift aficionado could want, having a medium-eft clutch, precise if slightly stiff shift throws, and well-spaced ratios. However, the engine's flat torque delivery makes it tough to pick the wrong gear. I liked it much that I seriously considered ditching my flight home and stealing your vehicle. I would have been a fan with the G70's driving dynamics, but how about the rest on the car? If you have any knowledge about other Genesis models or their Hyundai-branded predecessors, the Genesis and Equus, guess what happens to expect? Genesis has invested heavily to get the G70's image right, and it's particularly done an admirable job. Styling is a crucial component for just a luxury car, and I just like the look on the G70. It's subtle, with a few cues with the back that remind me of Acura's before they got really ugly. Memorable? Not really. Despite spending the greater part of 2 days together with the G70, I couldn't draw one from memory. But neither can it be offensive, and I think that's important. The interior is executed well and exudes all in the ambience I expect at a luxury car. I'm a huge fan with the quilted leather around the doors and seats in high-end models, but I was no less fond from the lower-spec manual transmission G70 I drove. The shape and style in the dash bears little resemblance to your Stinger, though much in the switchgear is the identical. My biggest complaint concerns the LCD screens for the instrument panel and infotainment systems. They use fonts and graphics just like Hyundai and Kia models, which clashes using the elegance in the interior. Hyundai really will need to reskin the graphics and provides the Genesis cars their very own look. Let's discuss the elephant within the room, which would be the similarity relating to the G70 along with the Kia Stinger, as well as the idea the Stinger is supposed to be a wonderful tourer as you move. The G70 may be the more performance-oriented vehicle. To me, as a result, no sense. If Genesis can be a luxury brand, then a G70 ought to be the grand tourer while using roomier back seat, even though the Stinger really should offer the stiffer suspension and manual transmission. I much like the G70, which is, however, if it rode and handled such as the Stinger GT, I'd nevertheless be perfectly happy. Why they did what they have to did can be a function with the corporate dysfunction that pervades the Hyundai group, where brands are pitted against the other person instead of being cohesively planned to complement the other. Still, if corporate ineptitude should be to blame for bringing us this type of appealing car, restoration it's not the scariest thing. Pricing has not been finalized in the press preview, but I was promised an amount range starting within the mid-30s and topping out at $50,000, a very good price for all that this G70 delivers. The Genesis G70 is bound to employ a tough go of it inside the marketplace. After all, luxury cars are only for brand cachet, and Genesis has none. While the brand is pedaling furiously to get buzz, might be found take time. It's been 3 decades since Lexus, Infiniti and Acura were launched, and 2 of those brands remain struggling to be right. And despite more than a decade of solidly good cars, buyers still are likely to regard the South Koreans as purveyors of bargain bin transportation. But all of that is next to the point, since the 2019 Genesis G70 would be the car we've been requesting. It's luxurious, affordable, reasonably practical, great to push, aggressively priced, and you can obtain it having a manual trans. Every time I review a motor vehicle, I ask myself if I would spend my very own money to get one. In the case on the Genesis G70, the reply is an unqualified yes. 2019 Genesis G70 specifications. August-September 2018. Price: $35,000 base. Engine: 2.0 liters turbocharged DOC 16-valve I-4252 AHP at 6,200 revolutions per minute, 260 lb-ft at 1,4004 revolutions per minute. 3.3 liters twin-turbo DOC 24-valve V6365 HP at 6,000 revolutions per minute, 376 lb-ft at 1,3004 500 revolutions per minute. Transmission: 6-speed manual, 8-speed automatic. Layout: 4-door, 5-passenger, front engine, all-road sedan. EPA mileage: 18,222,530 miles per gallon city hui. LXWXH: 184.4 x Na x 55.1 inch. Wheelbase: 111.6 inches. Weight: 3,5173, 886 pounds, 060 miles per hour, 4.5 seconds V6, RWD. Top speed: Nah.